Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business with the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you. The bottom line is, we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important factors that go into establishing and growing your brand.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean sales, marketing, trade marketing, new product development, broker and distributor management, new product development, brand M&A, and financing. As a part of our show, we bring our guests that are brand founders and leaders, agencies, Amazon specialists, sales agents, contract manufacturers, retailers, and investors to discuss their experiences and share their insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please subscribe to the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website to learn more at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. We would love to have you along for the ride. Looking to scale or launch your supplement or skincare brand? Eagle Labs Incorporated, based in Florida, offers full-service NSF-certified contract manufacturing of capsules, tablets, powders, liquids, gummies, and lotions. All of their manufacturing takes place in the USA. From R&D and formulation to packaging and fulfillment, Eagle Labs provides scalable, high-quality production that meets FDA and NSF standards. To learn more, contact Michael Law, Chief Commercial Officer at Eagle Labs at michael.law@eaglelabsinc.com, EAGLELABSINC, Michael Law, eaglelabs.com, or text him at 203-242-6417.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Road to Retail. Bruce, good morning and good to see you.
Tracy, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. We've got a fantastic episode today. Very exciting. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who we have today?
Oh, folks, we're privileged to be joined by Mr. Charles Miller. Charles is president and CEO of Persuadable Research. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with Charles a couple of times over the years. So Charles, thank you for making time to come on. And why don't you tell the group a little bit about your background and how you ended up founding your own firm?
It's an honor to be here. I've been following your show for a couple of years now, and I'm pretty excited.
So you're the one.
Be here. I am the one.
Okay.
I'm the guy.
Excellent.
I'm the guy.
Thank you.
I'm the one who subscribed but doesn't take the extra step to like the video. So I'm trying to get better at that.
We appreciate that.
My background, let's see. I did what all freshly minted holders of an English degree do, and I went into sales. So thought I was going to go into broadcast sales. Thank God I didn't do that. They have sucked all the fun out of that industry, and somehow ended up in marketing research. I joined this company in February of '99, if you can believe it, and I bought it January 1st of 2013. So I didn't found the company. I bought it from a gentleman named Chip Osborne, who did found it in '95, and I've always considered myself a steward of what we built together over those years. So it's been a great adventure. We've been through a couple of different iterations through the years, but we really lent into being a custom consumer insights company in the early 2000s. It was about the mid 2000s that we started out working with advertising agencies. And in the mid 2000s, we made contact through a weird random happenstance with a little drugstore. And it was Krista Wolf who told us in about 2006, 7, hey, there's this organization called the CHPA, and you should really check it out. Chris, at that time, told us the best thing about the CHPA is you always get more out of it than you put into it. And as a current, and I'm not saying that as a current CHPA board member, obviously they got to the barrel, pulled the bottom out of the barrel, went another 6 feet down to find me and put me there. But it was through the CHPA that we made all of these industry connections within OTC, health and beauty, ultimately the Emerson Group, which was an early champion of ours. And it's just been a hell of a ride through the years. And, we do other things. We do automotive, we do food, we do restaurants, travel and tourism. One of our biggest clients right now is a Korean tractor manufacturer, but OTC, health and beauty, VMS, that's our family. That's where we do the most of what we do. And it's been a hell of a lot of fun.
Well, Charles, that's a great backstory. And you've mentioned a couple of groups that we've been fortunate enough to get on the show. Tracy and I.
Scott was on a couple of days ago, right?
Yeah.
Scott was episode 100. So maybe we'll have to circle back and get you on for episode 200. So you better do really good today. This is your audition. But
there we go.
Tracy and I were asked and invited to cover the CHIPA leadership meeting down in San Antonio this year. And again, I'm highly biased, having been involved with that group for literally decades. Everything you said about getting more out of it than you put in is very true. All right, Tracy.
Great to see Krista Wolf get the Ivan D. Combe Award this year. Yep. Richly deserved. It was absolutely delightful to see that happen.
Yes, and I saw Steven Spielberg pursuing Tracy in his cowboy hat to see if he wants to be in the next iteration of the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Tracy's looking for the other 6 people. Yeah. All right. Tracy, why don't we kick this off and let's start talking to Charles about emerging brands.
Yep. So, Charles, as you know, our audience is mostly small emerging brands. Yep. So just a little bit about some of the actions and tactics you've seen brand leaders use to increase their likelihood, of success. And the follow-up to that is, what do you just have to get right as a small emerging brand in order to have any kind of chance to be successful?
It's so much of it is lightning in a bottle. We tend to see 2 kinds of people who have come out of traditional big corporations, that look at marketing research as a have to have, and then we often see people who have a great idea, a better mousetrap that they're pushing forward out of their home, out of their garage, or out of their career. Some of them are thirsty for research. Because they tell us, I've talked to my family, I've talked to my friends, I've had everybody in my kids' school try this product. So they're thirsty for consumer insights, but it's hard to get them to invest the dollars in a larger study.
Right.
Some do, often at the insistence of a consultant or a consulting group like the Emerson Group will often tell small emerging brands, hey, where's your data? Where are consumer insights? How are we going to tell this story at retail? So on the founder side, that's how they often come to us, is at the behest or recommendation of someone who's already in the industry. And in some cases, even a buyer will say, hey, what's your reason for being? Why you? And custom consumer insights can help answer that.
Awesome.
So Charles, one of the things you just said there, which is interesting, is that sometimes people are going to go, and we're going to get into this. They just want to go with their gut too much. And Tracy and I, man, we've talked to a lot of brands either on the show or in our various journeys professionally. And kind of one of the bumper stickers is you meet these people who would rather fail for free than figure out what the answers are before they go in. And another group that can really push entrepreneurs or emerging companies is if they've gone to the table to take on an investor. That's another group that'll say, well,
Yeah,
that's a great story. Where's your proof?
Yeah.
Where's your proof? Okay, so pressing into this a little bit more, Charles, how are companies using consumer insights to shape their overall strategies versus just make purely tactical decisions?
It kind of depends on which side of that continuum we're talking about. If it's the founder, the inventor, they often don't get to strategy until later. It usually starts out with, while the investor asks for this, hey, I need some talking points. Let's go do a rocket powered survey. We'll ask a handful of questions, throw them into a deck, and off they go. They often don't get to strategy until some years down the road. If they're an experienced marketer coming out of a big company, they're the ones who usually walk in and say, I need that AANU, that habits and practices. I need that foundational study that they know will serve the brand for 5 to 7 years. It's that kind of study will get recycled in decks with investors, with buyers, with excuse me, voice a little scratchy, with all kinds of presentations and groups, and they'll mine it often for a decade or more. So it just kind of depends on the mindset going in. With the founder side, what we have seen, if they do a couple of those studies, and I'm fine with that. I'd rather them do something than do nothing,
Right.
because once they get a couple studies on their belt, they start to see, wow, if I'd just gone a little further, because by the time they're on the third study, they could have had all these questions answered in one study right at the outset. And that's what eventually gets them into a more strategic frame of mind.
So one thing here, folks, Charles mentioned an ANU. That's an attitude and usage study, which really helps the brand leaders understand what consumers are thinking about their product and exactly how they're using it. Charles, is that a fair definition?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Usually with the AANU, we're focused on the category and your brand and your competing brands. It's really about understanding what is the battlefield and where do I fit in. Now, with small and emerging brands, they rarely have enough awareness to chart on that battlefield. And that's where you often hear, well, what's the point in doing it? But if you know what the battlefield looks like,
Right.
for example, like through a perceptual map,
Right.
and you can see that, you know, I'll give you a great example. 100 years ago, did a study for a lotion product, and they thought they were the medical lotion, the therapeutic lotion, that they were what you went to when you really had severe dry skin, things like that. What our perceptual map showed that no, these brands over here were very therapeutic. These over here were very scent focused. And these over here, including the client's brand, was the lotion next to the kitchen sink that everybody in the house used. And if you're going to market your product, that's a very different strategy that you're going to use in that situation. So even if your brand isn't charting on that map, knowing where the players are and where you want to play, am I really a therapeutic brand? What are those brands talking about? What claims are they making? Who are they appealing to? Well, that's where I want to play. Or, in that particular instance, there was one brand that covered all three sectors just on the edge, and they were the number one brand in the category at the time.
Interesting. So understanding how you fit into the competitive set, folks, as we've discussed before, is critical, especially as you start pressing in to speak with retailers, whether brick and mortar or digital. Tracy?
And I want to follow up on that just a little further, because an AA&U does what we just described, but with emerging brands, oftentimes we recommend they go to a habits and practices study as a starting point, because habits and practices are really about yes, the brands are part of it, but it's more important for an emerging brand to understand what times of day are the consumers using? What percentage of the population is using that particular item? What is the incidence of your target? One of my favorite examples is, and I use this to remind people that our world is not like their world. The average consumer is very different than we are as marketers working from our homes or working from big office buildings and so on. And the example I use is from a Harris study a couple of years ago. It asked, what percentage of people take a shower in the morning? And when I'm in a big conference with us in ne'er-do-wells, I ask that question, raise your hands. How many people shower everybody in the room? Not everybody, but a lot of them, because we're all in our suits and our hair's all done and we're all cleaned up. Less than 50% of the American population showers before 9 a.m. It's closer to 40%. Why is that? Because there are a lot of dirty jobs in America. There are a lot of people who are nurses, there are waiters that are tradespeople. They get up, they go right to work, get all sweaty, and they shower in the afternoon and the evening. So understanding those habits and practices relative to your category, your product, can completely change how you approach the market.
That is super interesting.
Great insight.
Tracy?
Great insight. So this is a really big question. So a lot of brand founders that we talk to, they're all about spending their money on driving sales versus doing research. So tell us a little bit about what types of research, a brand leader really needs to do to execute and understand. And part B of that is be a myth buster today, because a lot of small emerging brands think that, research is several $100,000. So talk to us a little bit about that as well, about costs.
Yes. Yeah, several $100,000, and it's not going to come in for 8 months.
Yeah.
I wish. Wouldn't that be great? Would you repeat the first part of that for
Yeah,
me?
so they don't want to spend money on research.
Okay,
What
yeah.
kind of research would you tell a brand leader you've just got to do that? This is the baseline research you've got to do.
So for emerging brands, the gateway drug with us is often a package test. Now, because it's one thing you just got to get right. Those
Right,
emerging brands aren't going to be able to spend money out on radio, TV, and TV is YouTube. It's digital, but visual media. It's just getting that package right to whether it's on Amazon, whether it's DTC, or whether it's on a store shelf, it's just got to resonate
right,
with that target audience. And in many cases, they don't know what that target audience is in the moment. They have a theory, they have a persona that they've made up, but they haven't researched it. But when they're looking at two, three, or four package ideas and they're wondering, crap, which one do I go with? A quick hit package test will give the reassurance and confidence to advance with whatever decision they end up making. And what usually happens is one is terrible, two of them are okay, and maybe one's pretty good. But then they can take the best things from the middle two and construct. Often the package that moves forward isn't the one we tested. It's a tweaked version of one of the two or three or four,
right.
whatever it is. But I think, you know, if nothing else, test that package before you go forward, because it can take months, if not years, to change it if you get it wrong. And the logistics of changing it, particularly if you're in a retailer, is
Very
very
difficult.
tricky.
Yeah, very difficult. What about how do you prove your product's different? How do you test that?
You know, that's really, really, really tricky. One of the one of the questions we ask is this product unique? Um, I have to remind people all the time, unique isn't always good. Unique can be a big screaming negative. It's one of the neat things about the AI research tool that we use. It costs a lot, so emerging brands can't really go there. But we have often found using that tool, yeah, that package is really unique. And then we discover in the verbatims, but they hate it completely. So
Unique is a code word for weird.
it can be.
Or I don't understand.
Yeah, or I don't
And worse.
understand. Um, you know, I think research is hard. I think it can directionally tell you if it's different. One of the things that we encourage people, if they have the resources, is don't just test your package, test the category leader package. And then
Interesting.
what we do is we do it in a monadic cell. So you got 100 people see this package, 100 people see package B, and then 100 people see the category leader package. And if your product comes through as different than the category leader in a good way, that can be a good way to differentiate. See, you're onto something. And when that happens, that immediately becomes slide one in the pitch deck to retailers. So it's not just, determining the package, it's using the insights to go into the meeting with the retailer and saying, we're changing the package, here's why, and here's why it's better.
Yeah. Great insight. Great insight, Charles.
May I come back to the question of cost?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
So, technology has really democratized the ability to do research. SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, there's lots of tools out there. And for a long time, I would say, as a research company, it's really hard to argue that my questions are better than their questions. Because if people know what they're doing, they're often very, very similar. Interestingly, AI is making that a lot easier for us to claim because people will ask AI, hey, give me a survey about brand insights. And AI will give them an answer that's very compelling, very convincing, but within the margins, there are things that as a trained researcher or an experienced researcher, you would see, oh, no, 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 that's leading the witness, or no, 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 that's not going to get, or that order of questions is wrong. So I don't want to say that you can't do it on your own through SurveyMonkey or something like that. You absolutely can, and you can often get close. But I also tell people I can never build a deck on your house cheaper than you can do it yourself. But I don't want to live with a deck that I built. And as an experienced team of researchers, we can get you that quality and get you that last 10% that really gives you something you can believe, you can trust, that retailers will trust. And we've always been a very scrappy resource. I like to say I never want perfect to be the enemy of the good. And that's one of the reasons why we have what we call rocket-powered insight studies and rocket-powered surveys. Both are can be well under 10K, usually in that 5 to 8K range. Typically about 10-day turnaround. We can go faster if the client can, and with good, strong sample sizes. And those are those tactical resources. So, and small and big brands often use those because they have a meeting with the retailer, because they have a meeting with investors, and somebody just thought of it 2 weeks before the meeting. Oh, hey, wouldn't it be great? And that's where those types of studies. We talked earlier about habits and practices, ANUs. We typically do those in the 25 to 35K range, and they typically take about 6 weeks to do. Can be done faster, but that means you're working weekends with us to get it out the door.
Right.
Great.
So Charles, you've kind of laid out a good roadmap for the work a small emerging or challenger brand needs to do to understand their reason for being, whether their uniqueness is good uniqueness or weird uniqueness. You talked about package design, understanding the battlefield. So let's say all that has led to a successful sell-in to a retailer or a listing on a digital shelf somewhere. Talk to us now about the importance and the research tools that can ensure that your communication is both compelling and clear, because Tracy and I always like to say, sell in is great, but sell through is paramount, and that's where you get paid. So how can you make, what aids and tools can you offer counsel to our audience about making sure that their marketing messages, whatever the platform, Super Bowl ad, digital ad, blah, 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 is resonating with the consumer?
That's really changed over the last years. For a long time, at least in my world, people would test creative, not just to know whether this direction or that direction was right to go, but they would test the specific ads. The speed with which agencies can make changes to ads and A/B test and see that this ad is outperforming that ad has really reduced the demand for that in my world. Where I think we still play an important role is choosing the strategy. What is the campaign? This again goes back to the AI tool that we used, but we did a study for a large lip care company, and they had 4 different campaigns. I can't, I'll tell you, one was all about humor, leave them laughing. Another one was all about sweet and tender moments and used song lyrics. Another one was about right tool for the job. And the last one was empowerment, strength to the people. And through testing of those campaigns, and the idea of the campaign was they wanted to strengthen their core brand and talk about efficacy. In the research, the rainbows, unicorns, and happiness of the song lyrics won. It was so strong. Everybody loved it. But in the verbatims that we were seeing, the core they were not saying to us what we were trying to convey about the core efficacy of the product. It was right tool for the job, that campaign, where people really didn't like the campaign, but they were telling us, they were feeding back to us the language that the client was trying to impart. Now, this was an AI study. We're talking to 400 consumers all at the same time, and we happen to have a different version of the right tool for the job campaign that we were able to plug in real time and show to that audience and say, well, what about this? And then, bam, it clicked. Everybody loved that. And again, they were feeding back to us that core efficacy message. And ultimately, that was the campaign strategy that led the brand forward. In that study, we were only testing magazine ads, but because that strategy came through there, it was immediately used as a launching point for different digital ads, for different TV campaigns, for everything, because it was the right strategy.
So very interesting that the progress, for lack of a better word, of the tools available can help you determine which execution is better via A/B testing, but the research still unearths the strategy that should be pursued. Very interesting. Tracy?
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about the pros and cons of trying to field, one large study, research study versus maybe several smaller ones. What's your thoughts on that, Charles?
It depends on the client. It really depends on what they want to achieve. The big problem with the one big study is that if you forgot something or you missed something, it may be years before you get them to go get another one. Whereas if you can do a good size study, but still have budget to do little things along the way, because within those tactical studies, you can also ask strategic questions. Now, you can't marry it back to the big study, but it is informative of your overall campaign, your overall strategy. On the smaller studies, there's almost always, if your brand has enough awareness, a small subset of your people, may not be a readable sample of people, but directionally it may tell you, oh, they hate that. Everybody else loves it, but our customers hate it. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
So
Bruce?
Charles, Charles, back in earlier in my career when I was a young bumblebee in the brand management group, all of our major brands had quarterly tracking studies. So is the brand tracking study still valuable? Is it dead? And if it's dead, why did it die? I mean, those were a big deal back in the day. I mean, that was command performance, sales, marketing, research, finance. I mean, that was a full house meeting in the day.
And in the day, broadcast was the big mover of how you would promote yourself, and broadcast could move awareness numbers. I don't think brand tracking is dead, but it is certainly on life support. And it's definitely not monthly, not quarterly. Every year is still a good idea. But the reality is, all the effort, things are so fragmented that it's hard to move the number. And every person I've had do a brand tracking study with the intent of moving the numbers has left disappointed over the last 10 years. They come out, they were dependent on it, they want to do it. We tell them don't do it. If you're particularly if you're not doing broadcast, and by broadcast, I still include YouTube TV, video content, or even Sirius XM, so on and so forth. It's all. I'm not just talking about cable TV, but if you're not speaking to enough mass audience out there, that awareness number is never going to change. It's never going to move. So people give up.
So Charles, my error here. Can you just tell the folks quickly what a tracking study is and exactly what is it tracking? You know, most people hear tracking and I'm like, tracking sales? Yes, I definitely want to do that. No.
Where we're traditionally, from my world, it is, are people, am I top of mind with category shoppers? When I say facial tissue, are they thinking Kleenex, or are they starting to think about Cottonelle? Are they starting to think about something else? And so, and moving those numbers has gotten really hard as so many people have leaned into digital. I hope this isn't controversial, but I've never seen a digital only campaign move an awareness number. Yes, it generates sales. Yes, it is generating ROI, but my sense of it is they're just talking to the same bundle of people, and it's never additive and that never is a gross over exaggeration to make the point. But when done in conjunction with a tracking study, I've never seen it move numbers. There has to be some kind of mass advertising.
You need the pressure. You need the pressure.
Yeah. And, I think they are not a client, but I think Salonpas has done an unbelievable job with that. They're everywhere, and they got to be spending millions of dollars. They're everywhere, but I believe it's working out well for them because they have that mass effort in radio, in TV, in satellite radio, things like that.
That's helpful to circle back and just provide some context for what we are tracking. Tracy?
Yeah, so let's talk about surveys a little bit. So we all get surveys. Talk to us a little bit. Are these legit, and who takes the time to really complete these surveys?
So in our world, we work with panel companies that maintain databases of people who have raised their hand and said, yeah, I'll take surveys. I'd be happy to. Um, I'd like to say the the online survey industry does a pretty good job of representing the big middle. When you get to really high incomes or really low incomes, it can, but it's not perfect. You have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt. But when it comes to consumer products, I think it does a really good job. One of the things that's always surprised me is that so a large part of the population wants to help. They want to be in the know. They want to be part of the process. And in some cases, they think they have something to add. Um, it is I've always been I've always walked, particularly with focus groups. I've always walked away from focus groups with my faith in the American shopper kind of restored. They're there because they want to help. They're interested. They want to know, what's coming, what's out there, and they know that we as marketers need input.
So Charles, when we spoke before your appearance here on the show, you said to me, you said, leverage your CRM, but don't get lost in it. The choir can only tell you so much. What did you mean by this? I think that's a very interesting quote.
The particularly with small brands and emerging brands, I think it's a lot like medicine. First, do no harm. And often a new marketing person will come in and say, "Well, that packaging's been around for 3 years. Let's go for a revolution. Let's change it." Well, if you've got a CRM, by God, please run it by your choir first, because they'll tell you whether or not it's helping.
And Charles, can you quickly just define what CRM is in the way you're using it?
Customer relationship management. It's a database of emails that you're harvesting through your DTC website, and whatever mechanisms you can do to pull together that database of shoppers. In some cases, it can come through customer returns. It can come through customer complaints, which I think is an underserved opportunity. Nobody complains unless they want the relationship to work. So finding somebody who's complaining, it's great if you can turn them into an evangelist.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of complaints that way.
It is the only person who's going to take the time to bother with returning something. And I understand there are a lot of bad actors and weird people out there, but I think often you can spot the genuine customer from somebody who's just trying to scam you.
Oh, yeah. All right, Tracy, rubber hits the road with the retailer here.
Yeah, so let's talk about our friends at the retail level. So obviously retailers today get bombarded with all kinds of small and emerging brands. They, of course, want to hear the founder's story, but they also want to know what kind of research you did. So what kind of research do you need to show a retailer to prove to them that your brand is going to improve their category performance? What do you need to show them in a presentation?
One thing that we always try and do in the habits and practices study in the AANU is find a way to show that your product in your category is additive. I'd like to be on your store shelf. They're still going to buy the category leader, but the woman, as is often the case, is going to put us in the basket too as a treat for herself. if you can show that what you're bringing to the table isn't taking velocity that they would otherwise get, that you're additive, that's a great story to be able to tell. Now, as a researcher, I often have to remind people I'm in the news business. I'm not in the good news business. So, so I can't always promise that the study is going to show that, but that's always a good thing to, if we find that, that's a big one when meeting with retailers.
Hey, Charles, one thing to push a little deeper on here. In this hypothetical pitch deck to a retailer, you've done the packaging study, you have some insights coming out of habits and practices. How important is it to do any testing around the price point you believe you should be at? We all know retailers set the price. Tracy drives that home every episode. But what kind of pricing work from a research firm should you bring to the table so you have some facts to discuss with the buyer?
With emerging brands, so with established brands, it's pretty well known. And they're often gut checking whether a little increase is going to hurt them, how much they're going to lose. They're playing around the margins. With emerging brands on price, I think you're right. The retail is going to set that price, and the price at which you're profitable or not. I think the big thing in price for an emerging brand is just making sure it's within the rational acceptance of consumers. We have often had emerging brands come in and say, hey, I got this better mousetrap. People would love to spend $79.99 for it. Nope. It's just a killer. So making sure that the emerging brand is realistic with their pricing is probably the most important part, rather than trying to nail down what you can sell it for, making sure that you're within the rational realm. That's really hard for founders. Usually when we're doing that, it's because a consultant is trying to show the founder that they're way unrealistic with what their hope is for their price. So we'll test it at different price points. We'll do a concept test. Here's the concept. And again, it'll be monetic. So separate cells of unique respondents looking at each concept. Here's how many people like the concept. Now we add price, and here's how much that like drops. And usually the lower you get on the price, that drop is less. And you're trying to find that balance.
Yeah. So, folks, a couple of things here that Charles has said throughout the course of the discussion when you go in to pitch a retailer is, once again, we've had a guest talk to the importance of your package and proving that it communicates and it works. We've also now just heard about pricing. Every product that Tracy and I run into, not all of them, but the majority, everyone thinks they're going to be able to charge a premium, but not many come to the table with the facts that back that up. So just because it's made with your, TLC doesn't necessarily translate that someone will pay for that. Having a clear benefit statement that Charles talked about coming out of the communication testing is also paramount, because sell-in is great, sell-through pays the bills. And then lastly, and this is a key point Tracy makes all the time, a buyer is much more interested in their category performance than your brand performance. Absolutely. And in the end, you have to outperform what they are taking out, because if you underperform, bad. If all you do is match performance, they could have saved themselves all that work of cutting in a new item. So you really want to show that you're going to be incremental. So Charles, that was good stuff. All right, we're rounding third base here. So getting into a couple of favorite questions. So over the course of your career, who's had the greatest influence on your career And if you want to name names, that's up to you, of course. But what did this person do for you that's really stuck with you over the years when you're like, man, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but man, I didn't know anything about anything, and they invested time in me.
I am one of the luckiest guys in the universe in that I have had tremendous examples to follow, to admire, to talk with. Um, it's too long a list to mention. Certainly, Scott Emerson and the Emerson Group have been just tremendous um, advocates for us through the years. Krista Wolf, Jim Cregan have been great friends. Susan B. Levy, I would also put at the top of that pile in terms of, I've been very lucky that a lot, if not all of my clients are friends as much as they are clients. And, and this is a people business, and and enjoying who you're working with is one of the great luxuries of life. Um, but if I had to talk to one in particular, I'd point out Chip Osborne, the founder of this company, and also is my father-in-law. And we worked to build this thing and keep it rolling for years and years and years. And he has so many sayings that I would put your listeners asleep, but a couple that jump to mind were all about leadership style and things that I think have really proven true for me. The first one I would say is, and he drilled this into us hard, and I try and drill it into the team hard. There are two kinds of people in our company. There are those who serve the customer, and there are those who serve the customer. And as president and CEO of this company, I serve those who serve the company, serve the customers. So, my role has always been to help support, clear the brush, solve problems, so that those who serve the customer can do what they need to do. And the second one is really related, that people on the front lines always have the answers. So he's a big believer in management by walking around. Now, that's just Teams calls for us. But the people on the front lines, the person doing the job, usually has a really good opinion of what's not working, and you should really listen to them in spite of what your experience, in spite of what you think or your opinion. They often know more than you do. So Chip Osborne is not just a great mentor, but a dear, dear friend.
Well, it's always nice when your clients become your friends over time, because there's nothing worse than seeing a name light up on your phone and you're like, why do I know the next 30 minutes of my life will be miserable? All right, Tracy, the big question. Lucky.
Yes, absolutely. So, Charles, tell us and this is our fun question. Tell us who your favorite band, brand, or football team, and why do you follow them?
Well, I just couldn't pick one. So, because when I saw the question, bam, 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 the lights went off. So, favorite band and a formative band in my life was The Cure, which in 1989 released the Disintegration album, which for 18-year-old Charles is just a cornerstone of my entire view of the world. And they get a bad rap for being all doom and gloom, but they had some amazing pop songs, and I think they're just simply terrific.
Well, the leader of The Cure is my hair hero.
Exactly. So favorite band of all time would be The Cure, but I don't listen to many oldies. I don't listen to Cure very often. So favorite band right now is Sunday 1984, and they just came out recently, and they have an amazing sound that really harkens back to some of that 80s and 90s alternative.
I love
Favorite brand would be Yeti. I just find them fascinating how they just you're going to spend $30 for what? And and I bought
one of these,
and they just multiply because they freaking work. I think that is the thing that so many brands miss is efficacy first. Deliver on that brand promise. And yeah, Yeti's stupid expensive. But you know, we have a swimming pool. We've got the whole set because they keep your drinks hot or they keep your drinks cold. There's no glass by the pool, and they just freaking work. And you'll never have to buy another one, is what you tell yourself, and then they start multiplying.
I love that. That's great.
And favorite football team was the Miami Dolphins. As a young kid, one of my earliest memories in life, I think I was 3 or 4. So the Dolphins were good then. And I walk into the den, my dad's watching TV, and I say, "What's that?" And he says, "Football, son." I said, "What's football?" I said, "Well, these guys are trying to push the ball that way, and these guys are trying to stop it." "Well, who do we root for, Dad?" "Dolphins, son. We always root for the Dolphins." Click. Imprint. Done. Now, the funny part of that story is my dad was from Levittown. He's a Philly kid, and he's an Eagles fan. But my mom was from South Florida, and the Dolphins were really good, and I think he wanted he let mom have that one.
He wanted peace in the household. Wise man.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
All right. Well, Charles, this was fantastic. I mean, how many times do you get a Mercury Morris Dolphins era reference with The Cure and Yeti? Not only are the Yetis very expensive, we have a house full of them too. So not only did I pay a lot, I then, because I paid a lot, pay even more to have our initials on them so that when they disappear around the neighborhood, I can reclaim them. I was like, that's funny, Frank. There's not a B in your name. Can I have my Yeti back?
There you go.
All right. So Tracy, bring us home. Charles, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. TP, yes. The big finish.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Charles, tell our audience how they can get a hold of you.
Oh, that's right.
Persuadables.com is our website. And you can certainly find me on LinkedIn, and certainly those are probably the best resources. Or reach out to Tracy and Bruce. They know how to get a hold of me.
We know where to find you.
There you go.
You have been great. You have been great. Such great insight today. We really appreciate you being on our show today. And audience, thank you for joining us. Continue to follow us on Spotify, on Apple. We post episodes every Tuesday on all those channels, including LinkedIn. And also you can check us out on our website, www.road2retail. Again, Charles, you were fantastic. Great episode, and can't wait for our audience to listen. Thanks
again for having me. It was really a lot of fun.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Charles. We wanted you to have a good time, and we knew you'd impart a lot of knowledge. Good luck out there, folks.
Thank you.